Ford's second generation 5-seater C-Max has injected a welcome dose of driving enjoyment into the scenic-sized mini MPV sector. A more versatile alternative to that familiar family hatch you were considering? Drive one, and you may well think so. If you're trying to sell a range of compact MPVs in today's people-carrying market, then you need to offer buyers up to 7 seats. The trouble is, if you simply take an existing design, lengthen it a little and throw a couple of extra occasional chairs into the boot, you can often end up with an unfortunate compromise in terms of both shape and wieldiness. Better to create separate 5 and 7-seater models, giving the smaller version a more dynamic look and driving experience. Sounds simple enough, doesn't it? Except that most of the compact MPV makers in the scenic class conspicuously fail to tick those boxes. 5-seater versions of cars like this are often frumpy to look at and to drive, but here's one that isn't: Ford's second generation C-Max. Here's a car that, for not a lot more money than a conventional Focus or Astra-sized family hatchback, offers a little more space and an awful lot more versatility with no handling downsides. Or to put it another way, it's a people carrier with hardly a trace of people carrying stigma. Unless you've already qualified for your own private parking bay at the maternity ward, it could be a stylishly clever answer for smaller but very active families. Let's check it out. There are certain cars that feel right as soon as you try them. This C-Max is one. The usual procedure with an MPV is to try and get comfortable behind a bus-sized steering wheel, then fire up a diesel engine that sounds like it's escaped from an industrial tarmac grader. The steering will be vague, the cornering about as precise as a Michael Fish hurricane alert, and the acceleration and braking will be distinctly underwhelming. So it's all the more surprising to find how joyously this Ford goes about scotching these stereotypes. This 5-seater version sits 58mm lower than its grand stablemate, aiming to offer a more dynamic yet still pretty commanding driving position, the high-set 6-speed gear shift falling easily to hand. Move off and the first portents are good, continuing as the first few miles reveal a car that, thanks to its tortoise chassis and clever control blade rear suspension, manages the difficult trick of remaining stable through the bends, yet offering a supple ride. As you turn into a corner and note the surprisingly feelsome nature of the electric power steering, you also notice that the car feels more planted on the road as you hug the inside of the bend. No accident, as it turns out, such responsiveness coming courtesy of a torque vectoring control system that lightly brakes the front inside wheel as you turn, at the same time transferring power to the outside front wheel where grip is needed, the kind of thing you'd expect to find on a supercar. The 7-seater Grand C-Max model has this too, but being shorter and 110 kilograms lighter, this 5-seat version is inevitably more agile, so you can enjoy the whole slightly surprising experience all the more. Of course, you'll point out to me, quite rightly, that throwing any MPV about like this is hardly likely to be high on the priority list for many family buyers, which is perfectly true at half the time that you're in the car. For the other half, you'll either be on the empty laden leg of your family taxi journey, or you'll be running late for the school play, ballet lesson, or train station delete as appropriate, at which point you'll be very pleased to find that this Ford will work with you without behaviour resembling a channel ferry on a choppy sea. Under the bonnet, though, Ford's engineers have developed all kinds of high-tech engines for this car, including both conventional and plug-in hybrids, and even an ultra-low emissions 1-litre 3-cylinder EcoBoost engine. Most buyers will be opting for more conventional 1.6-litre power. At the bottom end of the petrol range, that'll mean either 105 or 125 PS petrol units. But those with a little more to spend will be well served by paying the premium for a 1.6-litre EcoBoost engine. These are offered with either 150 or 180 PS, and even the least powerful of these two is easily capable of quickly dispatching dawdling caravanners, making rest to 60 in 9.4 seconds on the way to a maximum of 127 miles an hour. Most customers, though, will march past all these power plants with hardly a second glance in their search for a diesel. The volume choice being another 1.6, a TDCi unit with either 95 or 115 PS, the faster version of which offers a prodigious 285 Newton meters of torque, enough to provide a hefty braked towing capacity of 1,200 kilograms. It's all strong enough to make you really question the need for spending more on one of the 2-litre TDCi options, where there's 140 or 163 PS variants. Although one reason why you might choose one of those engines comes with the entitlement they bring of specifying the clever twin-clutch PowerShift semi-automatic gearbox. It's one of those that automatically selects the next gear before you've even left the last one. Unofficially known within Ford as the Compact, this 5-seater C-Max looks a little better proportioned than its 7-seater Grand C-Max stablemate, as perhaps you'd expect, given that its neat, if slightly unadventurous design doesn't have to incorporate the twin sliding side doors of the bigger model. Neat design touches include the trapezoidal front grille, the swept-back headlamps, and the sharp creases on the bonnet that go down the flanks. But rightly, Ford seems to have blown much more of the budget inside the C-Max where it matters. The dash is a riot of cowls, metallic and piano black finishes, and sweeping arcs. It draws its inspiration from the Fiesta's fascia, but is a few degrees bolder, and all the better for it, though locating the minor controls can take a bit of getting used to. I particularly like this shortened handbrake, much better than those electronic handbrake buttons you get on some other cars in this sector. Oddment space is fairly basic on entry-level models, but on higher-end versions like this one, you get a bigger version of the center console storage box and this overhead storage bin. Now, not everything has to be practical though. These cowls look like they've come straight from an Alfa Romeo show car. Brilliant. The seating fabrics are designed to cope with the worst that your kids can throw at them. And here in the back there are 3 completely separate individual chairs. Picnic tables, as you'd expect, for the kids' colouring, complete with cup holders. And if you're not using the centre middle seat, you can fold it down for an impromptu table. Or if you opt for the extra cost comfort pack, you can take it out completely and push the outer 2 seats diagonally backwards to create a more luxurious 2-seater layout. And luggage room, well, given that this car is only 140mm shorter than its grand counterpart, yet has 2 fewer seats, you shouldn't be surprised to find that it's substantial. Depending on whether you specify this space-saver rear wheel or load up capacity to parcel shelf height or right up to roof level, you can enjoy between 432 and 666 litres of fresh air. Now, should you need your C-Max to function as an impromptu removal van, then you can tumble these seats forward, which is a reasonably straightforward process. Just involves releasing a couple of catches and then securing them onto the headrests in front with these toggles. Now, if you want to go further, it is a bit more fiddly. You've got to take the seats out completely, and they're quite heavy as well, but doing so will release 1,723 litres of fresh air. List pricing suggests that you're going to be paying somewhere in the £17,000 to £22,500 bracket for your Ford C-Max, with the diesel variants that most will want starting from just over the £18,000 mark. And rivals? Well, entry-level petrol versions of alternatives like Renault Scenic and Citroën C4 Picasso will save you a bit, but neither of these model ranges can offer you anything like as frugally efficient and powerful as Ford's 1.6-litre EcoBoost units if you've a little more to spend on petrol power. As for the diesel variants that most will want, well, the C-Max's 1.6-litre TDCi entry-level unit will be just a few £100s more than obvious rivals, but I think it's a premium that many buyers will gladly pay for this Ford's extra drivability. The more powerful C-Max diesel derivatives are well priced against the opposition. Whichever version you choose, standard or EcoBoost 1.6-litre petrol or 1.6 or 2-litre TDCi diesel, you should find your C-Max to be pretty well equipped. Standard equipment across the range includes alloy wheels, air conditioning, a leather-covered steering wheel, and perhaps the highlight, a good quality 6-speaker Sony CD digital stereo with USB connectivity, a DAB tuner, and Bluetooth, as well as voice control. Desirable options, well, they include a glass panoramic sunroof and an active park assist system to help you get into the tighter spaces, something that'll be even easier if you tick the box for a rear view parking camera. Safety-wise, there are twin front, side and curtain airbags, stability control and all the latest electronic braking and traction aids. There's also a blind spot information system to stop you inadvertently but dangerously changing lanes in front of another driver. Ford reckon that the various clever technologies in this car will amount to substantial combined savings over the previous generation model. Now, much of that will be down to this car's increased efficiency at the pumps. Thanks to Ford's Econetic various technologies, which include Ford's Eco Mode in this case, and smart regenerative charging. Even the pokier 1.6 litre petrol EcoBoost models aren't going to have you on first name terms with your local filling station staff. The 150 PS version returns nearly 43 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle, and even the 154 grams per kilometre CO2 reading isn't going to weigh too heavily on your conscience. So impressive indeed are these figures that you might even mistake them for diesel returns. In which case you might be glad of the Easy Fuel misfuel prevention device, which will stop you from making an expensive mistake at the filling station. If you want to better these kinds of figures, then you really do actually have to buy a diesel, in this case the 1.6 TDCi, which manages 61.4 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 119 grams per kilometre of CO2. What else? Well, on the ABI 1 to 50 groupings insurance scale, this C-Max offers substantial improvements over its predecessor. You're looking at readings from Group 11E thanks to a Thatcham Category 1 alarm. You can also rest assured that this C-Max is eco-friendly. Over 300 parts are made from recycled materials. And the thorny issue of residual values should exceed most expectations. Independent experts reckoning that over 1 year and 20,000 miles, this car should be worth about 15% more than its predecessor was over the same period. And over the more common 3-year, 60,000 mile period, it's probably going to be worth about 10% more. Combining entertainment for drivers with comfort and convenience for passengers is a nut that has proven too difficult for many rivals to crack. But this C-Max manages it and barely breaks sweat in the process. Could it be improved? Well, there isn't a great deal wrong here, though I would like to see the 1.6 litre EcoBoost engine variants be more affordable. They're so much better than the entry-level petrol units. But that's something you can chat over with your dealer. If you're going to be having that kind of conversation as part of your search for a car of this kind with 5 seats, then you may want to take your checkbook with you. Drive this car and you may decide you need it.